welcome to TeachCloud's webinar on children's mental health books, activities and tips for educators. My name is Wendy Oke and I'm the CEO of TeachCloud. Today we're joined by Saskia Joss, who's going to be taking us through lots of exciting books and giving us a lot of practical tips. She's prepared excellent templates for us. But before we get started, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to TeachCloud. TeachCloud is an easy-to-use early childhood and after-school app with everything you need in one place. TeachCloud helps you streamline and reduce paperwork, communicate with parents, and comply with regulations. Teachers can move through the app quickly with several options such as daily records, learning journals, instant messaging, attendance, risk assessments, and cleaning sheets. Tap the learning journal option to record observations and document emerging interests. Parents can view and sign learning stories too. TeachCloud's learning journal software also provides prompts to learning goals in your chosen curriculum. Send documents, images, videos, and reminders using TeachCloud's instant messaging feature. Individual and group messages with read receipts makes communicating with parents a breeze. Taking attendance is done at the click of a button. Request absence reasons from parents and generate automatic attendance inspection-ready reports. Daily records such as medication, sleep, meals, and nappy changes can be recorded and signed. Accident forms can be documented and shared with parents using the free Parent app. Download or print records when you need to, or store everything on TeachCloud. The choice is yours. TeachCloud is easy to set up. Just add your rooms, children, and invite your teachers using the secure admin panel. Upload and share your policies with parents. Then quickly review parental consent and signatures or announce policy updates. TeachCloud was created by an early childhood teacher just like you, so you know you're in good hands. Have any questions? We'd love to help. Contact us at teachcloud.com or email hello@teachcloud.com. I'd also like to bring your attention to Cloud Academy. So this is a free and paid resource and it's app.cloudacademy.com. The link is on your screen now. So it was developed by TeachCloud to enable educators access to lots of free and paid training videos. These training videos are created by experts in the field of early childhood education, psychology, behavior, and also in health and safety. These are all available to everyone on this webinar on app.cloudacademy.com. But we get asked in every webinar where you can find the recordings. So the recording will be sent to everyone by email, and it will also be available on teachcloud.com/webinars. So you can find all of our previously recorded webinars on teachcloud.com/webinars. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available to you within the next few days. Lastly, then, the other question we always get asked is about certificates. So there is a certificate available, and I'm going to pause here for about a minute to allow anyone who needs to take down the link. I'll also put the link into the chat box. So that's teachcloud.com/download-certificate-mental-health.
And it's really nice to see everyone this evening. There's lots of you as usual, which is very exciting. Talking about 5 books that you can use in your classrooms practically to help children work actively on skills that will benefit their mental health, benefit their communication, and help children in a general way to connect with other people and help you to connect with them. And that the entire premise of what we're doing is trying to help children to gain skills that increase their ability to have positive mental health for the whole of their lives. And you might think that's a very big statement, like, how are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use language primarily to teach children the ability to express how they feel. And we're also going to talk about self-esteem. We're going to talk about feeling empowered. We're going to talk about feeling safe. And the books that I've chosen this evening, you can see them on the screen. There's 5 books. It's firstly going to be The Storm Whale, then it's going to be Change Sings, then it's going to be, I think, When Sadness Comes to Call, then Super Duper You, and then Home. These books are not therapeutic storybooks. They are normal books. You can get them on Amazon. I think there are links for them on the documents you'll see in a second. And the idea is that we're going to be looking at these books thematically. So obviously we can take them at face value. They're lovely stories for children. And also you might notice I've also chosen particularly 2 stories with people of colour in them on purpose to show that that's an important part of mental health, making sure people are represented and making sure people are seen. So obviously they all have different kinds of people and different kinds of experiences inside them, but I've actively chosen 2 stories where the main characters are people of colour. And the idea is that we're going to be looking at these stories purposely with the mental health angle. The idea is that we're thinking not just about what happens in the story, but about the themes. And the reason I've chosen these ones each time, you'll see they've got a kind of different therapeutic theme. So the question is, why is it useful to use books to promote children's mental health? And the answer is, it's a very direct way. We are giving children the things they need to know, the kind of tenets for life, the useful skills, and using the methods and pictures and lovely ways to connect to characters to show children that they can have mental health skills as well. So the first book we're looking at is called The Storm Whale. It looks like this. And I don't know if anyone, you might say in the chat that you've used The Storm Whale before, that you know this, but there's also another one. It's called The Storm Whale in Winter, but that's the second one. And it's a book about, it's very simple. It's a very, very lovely book. Pictures are extremely simple, but very, very beautiful and impactful. They're lovely. And it's about a little boy. His name is Noi. And he's lonely. He's a lonely guy. And he's lonely because he lives far out in the countryside by the sea. And he lives with his dad. And although his dad is lovely, he's not a bad parent, he's not doing anything wrong, he has to go to work. And so Noi is lonely. And I think that the reason that I wanted to talk about this book is there's a very simple life skill that I think we can teach children about mental health that comes up from this book, which is that there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And it's really an important thing for children to know. Being alone means you're by yourself and you don't mind. You might have chosen to be by yourself, you might have not chosen to be by yourself, but you don't mind. And being lonely means you're by yourself and you don't like it. Why would that be important for children to know? Well, it's firstly sensing into your body and the feelings that your body might be having to know whether there's been a change. I was alone and I was fine. And now I've had a change in feelings. I can register and notice that my body feels different. And now I want to do something about it. So we're trying to identify children when our feelings change from something calm, positive, and normal to something less calm, less positive, less normal. That's when we need to ask for help. What we're trying to do in doing that with this particular book is it's not the main theme of the book. His loneliness only comes up at the end. He makes this lovely relationship with a whale who he finds on the beach, but he does it because he's lonely and he's looking to be and connect with somebody. And what we're really saying to children is, if you're not okay, that's fine, but tell somebody, reach out, make steps to make your life feel more how you want it, and notice when that change happens. So on the next page, you'll see a very basic kind of planning template. I don't know if you can, I hope it's clear enough, but basically, I'm not sure, depending on where you live and what country you're in, which areas of the curriculum are the main focus on for the early years curriculum where you are. But the things that I would like to kind of highlight, and in relation to this theme of loneliness and alone, is using vocabulary to teach children different things and making that the kind of focus of your week, that children can hear the language and use the language. Maths and data handling, so actually bringing these ideas into the maths and things that we're doing. Our writing and our reading focus is always going to be about this topic, this idea of kind of how do we use these vocabulary words and this understanding of the concept, in this case, of being alone, being lonely, being with friends, working out whether you do or don't like something. All of that's going to be brought through into different parts of the planning. And then I'm also thinking about role play. I'm thinking about the outdoor area. I'm thinking about which parts of the world and society do we also add into in this situation, as well as art, music, and physical education, as well as in this situation, because obviously we're doing a mental health focus, a kind of PSHE, personal social development, as the main part of our planning. So we're kind of thinking language and PSHE, the kind of personal social side, those are the most important parts, and the other parts of the curriculum should feed from there instead. So the difference between what I'm trying to propose and what we do usually is we're kind of usually taking maths and literacy, maths and writing as the most important parts of our curriculum. What I think is if we focus on the emotional side and the language side, those things will come at the same time. The ability to use our language for maths, ability to use our language and understanding for writing, that will come. And if we move our focus from maths and writing to vocabulary and emotional understanding, we'll see that progress much more quickly, as well as making more secure, happy children. So in this case, the vocabulary really focuses around this idea of friendships and being lonely or alone. And when we're talking about it, we're saying to the children, being alone is fine, just means you're by yourself and you don't mind. You like it, actually. Sometimes people really love to spend the evening alone. They want to watch their favorite program. They don't want anyone else to change the channel. Being alone is really, really nice, actually. And if you can be calm enough in yourself and you don't mind your own company, being alone can be an absolute pleasure. Being lonely is a very different thing. And you don't have to stay lonely. And that's what we're trying to teach children. This is a very basic example of coping strategies and coping skills. If you feel lonely, reach out to someone. If you feel lonely, do something different. Make the move forward. Move yourself away from the place of feeling uncomfortable and sad to a place of feeling included and happy, or included and moved or changed in some way. And then, so if we're thinking that that's our primary focus, all of the language of the week is about being friends, being kind, how to know if someone's a good friend. And then in the role play with, for example, we're doing a vet, we're making it kind of about care, about animals, because obviously we've got this book, Stormwell, so it's the opportunity to also bring in learning about animals and things like that. But what we're really trying to do is find ways to give children the opportunity to express themselves about relationships and practice the idea of whether you do like something or you don't like something, whether you want to change it or you didn't, what you noticed in yourself that made you feel like it wasn't the right thing. And this planning template, I don't know if it fits to what you do at your setting, but it will be available for you to kind of edit and make your own. And the different kinds of activities are all given opportunities where while you're doing them, you can talk with the children about how they're feeling about it. If they have a best friend, if they don't have a best friend, what their friends do that they like, what their friends don't do that they like. And the idea is, for example, for the PSHE side, the kind of personal social side, we're trying to actually identify with the children what are some qualities, skills, traits that you would be looking for in a friend. And even very little children find it extremely easy to talk about the things you're not looking for in a friend. So maybe you could start with that. They hit me, they punch me, they don't say nice things to me. They're very, very good at that bit, but they're not very good at what we'd be looking for in a friend. What are you actually looking for? And that is a really important part. When I talk in a lot of my sessions that I do with children that are slightly older about relationships, I'm talking with teenagers or even early teenagers about relationships. And, you know, we might be talking about sexuality, we might be talking about consent, we might be talking about those kinds of things. The thing I say regularly is the number one thing that everybody should be looking for in a relationship is that the other person is kind to them. Doesn't matter if they're a boy or a girl, it doesn't matter if they live close to you or far away, it doesn't matter if they have a good job or they don't. If they are kind to you and they take you seriously as a person, that's the most important thing a partner can be. And that's also true with a friend. And if we can set children up at a young age to believe that they're worthy of a friend, they deserve a friend who takes them seriously, is kind to them, helps them if they have a problem, if they're lifting something heavy, might come and help them carry it, if they can't do something, would help them, if they don't want to be alone, it would come with them. All of those things are exactly the same things we'd be looking for in a good relationship as adults, actually. And if we start talking about those things and this kind of ability to respect yourself and know what you want and need, even at this little young, tiny age, you go through your life knowing where your line was, knowing what you're expecting of other people and not letting other people mess you about and not letting other people take advantage of you, because you know that's not what a good friend does and that's not what a partner does. And even though these children are 2, 3, 4, 5, what we're doing is we're saying to them, for your whole life, I want you to know your worth and know that you're good enough to say no if something doesn't feel right. And all of that comes from this. We're teaching coping skills, we're teaching boundaries, we're teaching safe relationships from a very young age. And when you read this book, this very simple, lovely book about a little boy on an island, you don't really think that's what it's about, but it is. It's about safe, kind relationships. And so what we're looking for is, what is the most important thing that we could teach using this book? What kinds of things are a life message, an actual life message that these children could go through their lives with this as a fundamental cornerstone? And the ability to identify when you don't like something and you want it to be different is really fundamental. And the ability to say what you do and don't want in a relationship is also fundamental. And knowing what you deserve is also fundamental. So this book, even though it looks very simple and is very, very sweet, and obviously you can use it to teach about whales and animals and sorting and all the lovely other things that are on this planner, but the message of the week is this kind of identification of feelings and identification of what we do and don't accept from other people. So it looks like a very basic book, and it is, it's gorgeous. But even for very young children, we can make these things a part of the person that they are by putting this focus on relationships, this focus on what are we looking for in a friend? What do I do if I don't find that in my friend? All those things set the tone for better relationships for the rest of children's lives. So that's the first book. The next book we're talking about is Change Sings. It's an absolutely beautiful book. It's written by Amanda Gorman, and she was the young poet laureate that she wrote a poem and she read it at the Biden inauguration for the president. And she is young and fantastic. She's a person of color. She's incredibly confident. She's incredibly clever and fabulous. She's a wonderful person to have as an inspiration for young children of color and otherwise. And she's a very, very good choice of person to explore more about in your classrooms. And this book is very simple. It's a very nice rhyming tune. It's got lots of kind of got some old stickers in there. That's always useful. It's about a little girl. The pictures basically are about a little girl who is going around her local area, and she's got musical instruments, and she is kind of singing and finding different people, and at every point they find somebody to help, and they make their local area nicer. And it's a kind of an anthem. The idea is that it's kind of empowers children to make changes and think about the world as a whole, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So in this book, which has got really lovely pictures and it's very, very bright and colorful, we're kind of thinking about how do we empower even young children, little children, to look for the places where things can be nicer and better, and understand that even as a tiny person, you can change things. So we'll be thinking in a really active way with this kind of topic about what things can we actually change, what things near our school, near our setting, can we actually make better? Will our head let us paint a mural? Will our head let us clean the playground and put new plants in? Is there an old people's home nearby where we could go and make people feel happy? And that's what we're trying to say to the children. There are things that you can do. They might be small, and you might be small, but you can make a big difference. And even knowing that at a young age might inspire a child to really change the world, or it just might inspire a child to know that they're good enough to do things, that they have skills, that they are capable. And we all need to know that to be able to achieve. We often get these kind of mixed messages or these kind of subconscious messages from family members or from kind of the way we are in our class. You know, I'm not the best runner in our class. I'm not the most artistic person. My sister's much blah blah than me. My brother's more capable than I am. You know, we all have that from our own experience. And if you were getting at the same time as those messages at your home, a message from your nursery that they really believe in you, that they really think you can do things, that you're a capable, active, strong little person who can do amazing things, that will mean something different to all the children, but it will lead them to have more fulfilling lives where they really think they can do stuff. If you think back to when you were a child, I wonder how many people in this room, and I guess it wasn't that many when they were very little, thought that they were really, really capable. It's very hard to feel capable. You have to feel capable because somebody has told you you can do it. And we can be that person for these children. We can be the person that makes them feel they're strong enough, they're smart enough, they can do it. And this is a kind of, this book is obviously, we're using it as a focus for self-esteem, but we're really using it as a focus for empowerment. And so the idea is to be thinking much more practically for this particular book than the last one, which was kind of more cerebral. But this one is more about what can we do as a nursery or as a 2-year-old's nursery? Like genuinely, what can our 2-year-olds actually do? Well, they could fill all the buckets with mud, and then our kind of more dexterous children could plant the seeds. Or we could all paint, if we're just painting the wall blue, we can all paint the wall blue. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the best, most talented painters to do that. So it's about thinking, using this book to kind of give children the idea that we can all make change. And I think if you were using this in your nursery, usually you probably use it to teach about musical instruments. You might use it to teach about patterns. It's also got really lovely kind of pictures of the street art in this child's local area of kind of Martin Luther King, and other opportunities to talk about inspirational people who really did change the world in an amazing way. And I think this book is a very good example of something that you might think was for older children, but because the actual language is simple, and because the context can be very universal, and this idea of like, what could we do to help around here? You could go to a local park and pick up rubbish. You could do a car wash for your parents, where if you've got a green space, they can drive their cars onto the green space and you can clean them. There are things that you can do where you show the children how capable they are, and when you look back, you can say to them, look what you've done, isn't that fantastic? Aren't you amazing? You weren't expecting that today, were you? Usually when we play, we're just playing, but today we help people. You're the kind of person who can help people, and that, I think, can genuinely change someone for the rest of their life. And if you think how many years it took you to feel like you're good enough at doing things, or good enough at your job, or capable at certain things, if you felt that your whole life, how many more years of incredible things you might have done? You can be the reason that 30 children did that. So in this situation, we're using a very lovely, songful, tuneful book to kind of inspire children to feel empowered. And we're using it also to do very practical activities. We're trying to teach also independence, cleaning, building, painting, planting, giving these children many, many skills in 1 week that they might then use for the rest of the year. And the idea also is with the vocab and the language is, if you're using it actively for a whole week, the next week they're going to use those words in their play with each other, which means it becomes something more normal. You set up an environment where the children can speak freely using language they've been taught, and they've also seen it modeled by the adults in their classroom. So a lot of this is also about checking your language and making sure that you're being verbal enough that they can then copy you. The next one is more obviously therapeutic, and I don't know if it's kind of come into the mainstream of teaching yet. It's an extremely simple book. It's called When Sadness Comes to Call. And I might, because it's only just got a few words per page, if you don't mind, I might just read a little bit of it to you. So it's called When Sadness Comes to Call. And it's by a lady called Eva Elland. And it says, sometimes sadness arrives unexpectedly. It follows you around and sits so close to you, you can hardly breathe. You can try to hide it, but it feels like you've become sadness yourself. Try not to be afraid of sadness. Give it a name. Listen to it. Ask it where it comes from and what it needs. If you don't understand each other, just sit together and be quiet for a while. Find something that you both enjoy, like drawing, listening to music, or drinking hot chocolate. Maybe sadness doesn't like to stay inside. Try letting it out sometimes. Go for a walk through the trees. You can listen to their sounds together. Maybe all it wants to know is that it's welcome, and there's a picture of the little boy cuddling the sadness. Maybe all it wants to know is that it's welcome, and to sleep knowing it's not alone. And in this picture, the sadness, because he's let it in, has become very, very small, and it's now sleeping with him in his bed. And when you wake up, it might be gone. Don't worry, today is a new day. And that's the end. So it's a very, very simple book. I think it's simple enough that you could do it with very, very little children, that the kind of language is very simple. The pictures make it very, very vivid and obvious what they're talking about. And the idea of this book is kind of two things. It's one, this idea of all feelings come and all feelings go. You don't stay the same, which is why happiness is so elusive. You feel really happy on one day, and the next day you kind of have to try and catch it again. And that is an interesting way to put all feelings come and go, and allowing children to know that there's no right feelings. Like often we talk about like happy feelings, sad feelings, as if sad ones are the ones. we didn't have the sad ones, we wouldn't know what the happy ones felt like. And the idea with this book is that it's a very mindful approach to feelings. You will feel sad sometimes. That's okay. Being sad is part of life. And in this situation with this book, what they're trying to teach children is it will pass. And there'll be some things with kids where it really will pass. And there'll be some things where kids have had such a rough time where it won't pass, or it won't pass quickly. It will take them quite a long time for it to pass. They'll have to have therapy. They'll have to do other things for it to pass. And that doesn't mean this book isn't the right one for them either. The idea is that it will eventually, things will change. Feelings come and go, and all feelings are acceptable. We will like you and love you and look after you, whether your feelings are positive or negative, whether your feelings are difficult for you to manage or easy, whether your feelings are light or heavy. And what we're doing with this book is we're giving children language for different kinds of feelings, which is really important. We're showing them that feelings will pass and move on. We're also saying there's no right feelings, and we're showing unconditional respect for them, whatever their feelings are. So in terms of the planning, we've got mostly this idea of kind of happy, sad, okay, not okay. This one, I guess, is maybe for slightly younger children. But the idea is that we're talking about different kinds of feelings. And this is also a really good example of a time where you can teach children about, for example, how different faces look, like different kind of sad faces, angry faces, what the kind of commonalities. If you were going to sort faces, so the children can literally sort faces from happy to sad, they can look in a mirror and paint their own face, they can practice making different faces. All of those things help us as we navigate the world to know how other people feel and then know how our behavior should respond to that. So in all of those situations, we're trying to say to children, all feelings are okay. There'll be days when you feel happy, there'll be days when you feel sad. That's part of being a human. And whatever you feel, we can help you. If you're happy and you want to be happier, if you're happy and you'd like to be more relaxed, if you're angry and you want to calm down, we're on your team and we're here to help you and sort you out. So the idea of this particular book as a theme for your class is it gives you a really good week, a whole week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on how you plan and what ways you do use your books for your planning, to have a moment to really stop and luxuriate in teaching about feelings. So not trying to fit it in between other things, or quickly try and catch those moments in other books where they talk about people's feelings, but this one gives you the time to kind of sit in it with your team. In some ways it is exactly what the book is talking about. It gives you time to stop and be with feelings. Give your children a whole week of time to talk about their feelings, look at feelings faces, paint faces, take photos of them making different kinds of faces and look at them, all different things like that. And also, for example, I did for the maths, I thought was quite I thought it was quite good. I don't want to come up with it, but maybe it isn't, is the idea that you could do a bar chart based on their feelings for the week. So you can see literally in 5 pictures how varied the children's feelings have been in a week. Yeah, they might generally be quite similar, but even you might have a variation of how many children felt sad or happy or tired or hungry in that week, and just showing how quickly things change to children. And also that they can, and the idea also is to begin teaching coping strategies. So to say, for example, the literacy for the week is when I feel sad, I can. So the idea is about thinking about other things that children can do when they feel sad. Should they take time to run around? Should they take time to be still? It's thinking about with children active coping strategies for the feelings and different experiences that we might have. And the other thing is it gives your whole staff a chance to think about whether your classroom is appropriately set up for children's mental health. In this case, like on the bottom corner, it says understand the world. The idea is to actually make a box of activities that week where the children can at other weeks come back and use them to calm down or spend time to relax. So kind of like feelings bottles and music to listen to and fidget toys, and kind of making a structured system for kids when they need a coping strategy. And when you see a child's very sad, everyone in the nursery, whenever they find a child that's kind of sad or angry, would send them in the direction of the calm down box or the calm down area. And we'd be showing children actively that when you feel something that you don't like or you want to change, that there are things we can do that are safe coping strategies, and the opportunity to take time in your curriculum to talk about feelings and give children the opportunity to use them actively with a book like this, I think can be a very, very good option. So that's our third book. The next book we're talking about is Home. It's a very cool book. It's an interesting one. It shows kind of all different kinds of homes and who lives in them. It's quite kind of short, snappy text as well. I can read you just a little bit long because it's not got very much text in it at all. So it's called Home. It's by Carson Ellis. And it says, a home is a house in the country, or home is a flat. Some homes are boats, some are palaces or underground lairs, or shoes. French people live in French homes. Atalantans live in their homes under the water. And some people live on the road. And it's got all different kinds of homes. And we're going to be talking about it, not just about kind of materials or building. And obviously those things would be a very cool thing to do in conjunction with this in the weeks that you would be using it. But the idea is really to be talking about safety. And for lots of children, particularly post-COVID, there's been a loss of the feeling of safety as a kind of basic need and a basic feeling that we all have all the time. You might have noticed a higher level of children in your nurseries or settings with anxiety. You might have noticed the children finding it harder to leave their parents when they come in the mornings. You might have noticed a lot of things that are kind of concerning as a post-COVID symptom. And I think lots of children are really feeling this lack of safety. And this book is a really good example of something we can do really actively to help children regain the sense of safety that they've been missing. So one of the interesting things I think I would want to be talking about with this book is kind of, why do we live in homes? Why do we have in the nursery in a building with a door that we can shut? And what are we trying to do? What's the point of that? And we're kind of talking about how if we lived outside, we might be cold, but if we're inside, we could shut the door and we could put a fire inside or a radiator, and we can make our own safety. And that's exactly what the adults are doing for us. And the words and vocabulary that we'll be looking at this week are very different in terms of the things we were talking about before. They're not really feelings based. They're more kind of descriptive. And it's this idea of kind of different kinds of homes, house, block, flats, whatever, things like that. But it's also this idea of locked and shut and safe and closed, and no one can come in if we don't say so. And what we're trying to do with this particular book and looking at it from a therapeutic perspective is the idea that we're showing the children actively the safety that we put in anyway. We're reminding the children that we set up, as the adults who look after them, a safe place for them to be and know each other and play. And it will stop those children who have higher levels of anxiety feeling that need to kind of look around, that kind of panicky nature of the children, if they know that the box that we're putting them in is safe, that the doors are shut, that no one's coming in, that the people there are looking after them. Those are the things that will make a child begin to calm down. We know that anxiety comes from excessive cortisol, or the right amount of cortisol based on the kind of active and perceived threat. So children who cortisol, the kind of cortisol stress system that we have that helps us that makes us feel anxiety, comes originally from kind of prehistoric eras. If a dinosaur or a saber-toothed tiger was coming near you, you would need to create cortisol to make sure that you had enough adrenaline to get away, to save yourself. And with COVID, we were all so anxious, adults and children, that we've been constantly drip feeding ourselves cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which is meant to set us up to run away and give us the energy that we need to escape. But we couldn't escape because there was nothing to escape. It wasn't an imminent threat in the same way that a tiger coming into your bedroom is dangerous. The feeling that you might be ill or someone you might know might be ill was very overwhelming for everybody, that going out the house was unsafe. We all had this kind of intensive stress, this need for protection and fear, with no kind of active threat that you could see. It was so hidden and scary that everyone's had far too much cortisol. And we all need this feeling that we can shut the door and we're safe. And children need that anyway, and even more so post-COVID. So this book, which looks very simple and really just talks about different kinds of houses, we're going to be using it to restore the feeling of safety for our kids by saying, when you come here, we're in charge. We don't let anyone in that we don't know. We make sure that you are happy. We can even lock the door. Look how Marjorie goes to the door and she locks the door. That's because we can make this place really, really safe for everybody. And when we go outside, we're outside, but we're in our outside area, which has also got walls, which means that we also know no one's coming in, and we make sure that everybody's really, really safe, and we look after you. We're like a family here. You are looked after by us. We are sensible. We have a plan for looking after you. And all of those conversations can come out of a book like this. So the idea is to be looking for, in all of these situations, the theme you think children should understand about the world in a safe or emotional way, and finding a book that kind of matches that. It might be reading 5 or 6 children's books you don't usually look for things like that in, and then think, oh, actually, that really reminds me of this. Or that theme could really help us because we've got this little boy who's very blah, or this little girl who finds this, and then finding a book that sort of matches that. And I think if you've got kids with anxiety in your setting, this is a very good way to kind of subtly put in the boundaries and safety that a child would need to begin to calm down. So that's our 4th one. And our last book for today is this very lovely book. It's called Super Duper You. It's by Sophie Henn. I can read you just a little bit. I think it's got slightly more text than the other one, so you'd have to think about if it's the right one for the age of kids that you see. So it's the first picture is a little boy, and he is holding a baby. And it says, "I've known you since you started. I've seen a thing or two, or 3 or 4, or 5 or 6. In fact, I've seen a few. And something that I've spotted while watching you grow and grow is there are lots of different things, more than you could know. Sometimes you're this, sometimes you're that, sometimes you're in between. It's hard to say what makes you you. I'll show you what I mean." And then he explores his sister's kind of skills and abilities to show her how super duper she is. So this week's, like, to use this book for a week of learning or a few weeks of activities, the idea is really for the children to begin to identify the things about themselves that make them feel proud of themselves, the things that make them feel like they're good enough. Yeah, there will always be people that run faster than you or are taller than you. That's just, unless you're Usain Bolt, you're going to find yourself in a difficult situation to find someone who doesn't run faster than you. The idea is that children can find pride and talents in things all over the place. And the more you believe you're good at things as a child, the more capable you feel as an adult. The higher your self-esteem is, the less likely you're going to be knocked for confidence. And we can start forming these children's basis for self-esteem, particularly for children who don't really have parents that big them up or don't really say how great they are. We can massively change the course of their confidence and self-esteem for life by being the kind of people who identify those things for them. And the idea of this is to kind of spend the weeks with these kids thinking about the things that they're very, very good at and capable of doing, and also identifying talents for the kids and saying, wow, I've noticed that you're really, really good at this, and then giving them a chance to do those things. The idea in general is to just give kids a chance to showcase themselves and be noticed, and then we're kind of trying to make a little base, a little kind of foundation for them that lasts for a long time of their self-esteem. By identifying positive traits or positive skills or talents in children, it can absolutely define the course of somebody's life. If you always thought you were great at X, I'm sure you're probably still doing it. If there are things you thought you were never, I'm not very good at maths, and then you just never really do maths ever again, not that you should be constantly doing maths, it's boring, but the idea is that if we can help children to feel proud of themselves in general, as well as identifying talents and skills in them, we can help them to have a basis of self-esteem that lasts with them forever, makes them more likely to go for the job that they want to, makes them more likely to travel, makes them more likely to be brave, and believe in themselves in all different contexts. It's this tiny thing that you think wouldn't make a big difference, and it makes a huge difference. I think they might even say that self-esteem is probably one of the biggest deciding factors for success in life. And we, as educators, as managers of children, as helpers of children, can help children to create a basis of self-esteem that lasts with them for the rest of their lives. And it's books like this and weeks where children get to explore their talents and find their talents and know that they're good at things, as well as being able to identify that in other people. Like, one of the circle time activities is to say something you've noticed that someone else is good at, or that everyone in the class, a few children would notice something about somebody else, like they're very good at X or Y. And then also that, not everyone has the same things that they're good at. And this book gives you a chance to stop and give the children a chance to showcase themselves and think about what they're good at, and then for you to affirm those things will kind of put the cement in their foundation for an understanding of self-esteem for the rest of their life. And so that's the idea of that book, and those are the books that I have chosen to. I don't know, Wendy, if there are any questions or any comments, whether anyone else wants to say anything, but those are the ones for today, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Saskia. And I always think you just give so much information and value. Like, it's only an hour webinar, and I always come back with so many ideas. So really thankful for that. And we do have some questions, but before we get to those questions, because there was a lot of questions in the chat, I just want to draw your attention to the TeachCloud website, where you can get the recording. So if you go to teachcloud.com, you'll see preschool webinars. And if you click on that and scroll down, all of the templates that Saskia mentioned today are already on that page. So it's number 2, storytelling templates, and you can download that for free. And then the recording is obviously coming soon because we're still in the webinar. So that will be available next week, but all of the templates are already available on teachcloud.com/webinars. So I'm going to take some questions here. And the first question we have is from Evelyn, and she asks, how do you get past being afraid?
As an educator, like, how do you get, like, so, you know, for example, just even this, for like when I started working with Wendy, this I think is our 4th session together or something like that. You know, she said to me, there's like often there's over 100 people that are going to be coming to watch me do this. That's really scary. I'm genuinely very scared about it. It's actually scary. It's actually scary. And I'm sitting there the first time, and I think that one there were like 600 people, and it was the first time I'd done something like this. I'd done, you know, worked in schools and done other things, and, you know, blah blah blah. But it's totally different. And I think what I try to do is, number one thing to do always when you feel scared is breathe. The more deeply we breathe, the more we remind our body that we're not in a dangerous situation. And so we can take control. It's called the polyvagal theory, which is the idea that the different nerves that connect from your head down to your stomach and your stomach back to your brain, they if you regulate your breathing, exactly that thing we were talking about. If a tiger ran into the room, I'd be going and I would know that I was very, very scared. If I can regulate my breathing, ground myself, put my 2 feet flat on the floor, take a big deep breath, I can remind myself I'm safe enough to complete the activity, basically. And in this situation, it's nerve-wracking to talk to 100 people. You know, sometimes with Wendy, it's like 700 people. It's absolutely mad. And I think if you're all sitting in one room in front of me, I think that'd be much more scary. But what I'm trying to do is remind myself of the things I can do. You know, I'm trying to remind myself of the things I can achieve. And if there's something I don't know, I look it up first. And if there's things I can prepare in advance to make it less scary, I do, which is why I had all the books here, which is why I always kind of tried to be organized with it. But I think as an adult, you can also look for your talents. There'll be in your nursery, in the setting that you're in, there'll be other people who can do great things, but you can also do great things. That's why they hired you. That's why you're there. And usually with people that work with children, there's an element of, you have to be an extremely special person to connect with young children, because they see through you. They know exactly who you are. They feel your heart, they see your heart. And if you are the kind of person that can work with children and make it special, you must be a special person. And so you can know that whether it's scary or not, you can achieve. And I think even as an adult, start identifying the things you're good at and being proud of yourself and making space for yourself to believe you can. Even if it's nerve-wracking and worrying, you definitely can. So I think, you know, being scared is a big deal for everyone. And I think post-COVID, being scared is even more intense because your body kind of reverts back to this place of cortisol and fear and worry. And I think taking time where you really feel calm, going out in nature, and also identifying your big skills and giving yourself a chance to breathe into it and get yourself grounded before you start is one of the best ways. But also just knowing how good you are. You know, everyone has talents, and I'm sure the person who was scared to see who it was, but I'm sure you're very talented and very capable and very lovely. And I'm sure there are millions of people that love you and think you're fantastic. And if you could feel how they feel about you yourself, I'm sure you'll be doing all the things you're scared of.
Yeah, and usually I think it's the people that ask or are worried about not being good
Yeah,
enough, but are actually doing a really good job, you know, because they're always
100%.
researching, they're always looking out for stuff. We actually only have one more question. The rest
Great.
I answered were about recordings, but with the templates that you use, let's say we
Yeah.
wanted to adapt them for maybe older children, like
Yeah.
after school or school age, what would be your recommendations?
So obviously it depends. What I've made is inherently continuous provision. So that's more what we do in nurseries, but obviously there are some schools worldwide that use continuous provision up to sort of 8, 9 years old. So all of this would work in that context very literally. You literally just do the same thing, but you make the maths activities harder and the vocabulary bigger, and you kind of assess based on where your kids are. I think the other thing I would do is, if it isn't that, there's lots of different kind of reading and writing schemes that are based on books. Can't remember, there's a very, very good one that people do in the UK, written by Pi Corbett. I think you can buy it. It's a very, very clever system for teaching children about writing and reading and stuff like that. And the whole idea is that you inherently use the same book for, I think it's 3 weeks at a time. So the children really, really get to know it, and it's the foundation for all your writing, all the reading activities that they do. And in those situations, I would still be looking thematically, like the reason we're doing this is this. So instead of, for example, with the storm whale, instead of writing an account of what it was like to be a whale in the sea, I would write an account of what it was like for Noy to lose his friend, to have to put the whale back into the sea, instead of what it was like for the whale, because obviously emotionally it's much harder to imagine what a whale feels than a human. I'm sure whales have lots of feelings. I'm not undermining the feelings of whales. All whales are beautiful and have big hearts, but if you were imagining as a child what it would be like if your friend moved away, it's the same feeling in that book. And it's this idea of loneliness, acceptance, change that we're trying to manage, like give children the skills to manage. And I think it'll be about choosing a book based on the theme rather than the age of it, because all children can do good responses. Another thing we can do is we can do this for older children, and I can choose books that fit to an older age group if other people are planning for older year groups as well. If that's something you fancy. We're talking about other things we could do. So yeah, for example, there's a really, really amazing book which is a picture book just for older children. It's called Black Dog. I don't know if that person's still on this chat, but it's about fear, and actually talking about that the other person's question about fear. The book Black Dog is absolutely amazing. It's about this family, and they're in a house. When they look out the window, there's a big black dog outside the window, and every time someone looks out the window, the dog gets bigger, and it gets bigger because they fear it. And every time they see it again, it's more worrying, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a book for, I would say, probably kids that are about, let's say 7 to 15. It's for much, much older children in some ways, but all the children I've ever read it to respond to it very differently, because that's the thing about picture books. They make people feel very, very differently. Yeah, exactly. The one by Levo Penfold, that's exactly the one I'm talking about. It's an absolutely cracking book, but it's not for little children because it's got quite a lot of text. The idea is quite intense, and it's about fear. It's about confronting fears. If you go straight outside and look at the dog, you'll know what size it is. But if you pretend and put things off, it might get bigger. Like, revising for an exam, for example, the longer you don't revise, the bigger a deal it is, for example. That could be something you take from that book that you might talk about with older children. So I think it's about thematically trying to work out what kind of rules for life you think children should have, and finding books that match that, and then finding work that allows them to explore that for themselves. So in that case, it will be, how do you literally ask a child to write, how do you think you should manage your fears? I think that's those kinds of things. So the idea is to kind of look thematically rather than just literally at the books that you're bringing in, and seeing whether they fit the emotional environment you're trying to create as a school, as a setting for children. What are you hoping your children will believe as their fundamental beliefs and their practice, and what kind of people are you trying to make? And then finding books that fit on that, in that theme, rather than just, we're talking about autumn, we're talking about water, we're talking about, we can do all those things at the same time as having the opportunity for children to increase their vocabulary and their emotional relationships.
And Saskia, I actually lied, so we have one more question. So it's about the CAM area. So Sorka is asking, I've created a CAM area in my preschool. We have fidget, toy, books, music, mark making materials, color change lights.
You winner.
A chart explaining our feelings from 1 to 5 and suggestions on things to do to bring us back down. Is there anything else you'd suggest to add to this CAM area?
All of that sounds lovely, but I think I'd also ask the kids in your class, what do they like? make it enticing to them, and also make some stuff they can put in there, so they can paint pictures to go in there, soft pillows, like an actual place where they can zip up like a tent where they can actually get inside where no one can see them, because some children really need to be left alone to regulate, and some really don't. Some will really want someone to be sitting right next to them. And I just be thinking, where would I want to go if I was really stressed out and I was little? What would make me feel better? So sometimes children just genuinely need to be distracted out of feelings, and that's also normal for adults. We often be like, I feel awful today, I'm going to go and see my friend. Like we also distract ourselves. That's also a coping mechanism. But we're thinking, how would I make it enticing, and also how would I make it usable for children by themselves? And also I'd be trying to work out how to set up my classroom where every adult knows that's where we're sending kids. Someone's upset, doesn't matter which adult finds them first, that's where they take them. And it becomes the structure for the class. So it's kind of also about the adult support structures to get children into that corner. You've set up this beautiful corner. If no one ever goes in, it's not it's not doing what it needs to do. It needs to be this thing that all the children know that that's where they can go. And very soon your kids, if they're always being directed there, will start taking themselves there. They'll start, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to the quiet corner. And that's really what we want. We want children to actively initiate coping mechanisms themselves. And that's what we're trying to teach by having a calm corner, is this thing where when you feel bad, you can, there are loads of things that are healthy that you can do to fix it. And the more children feel empowered to go by themselves, that's what we're trying to set up. So the beginning is setting up somewhere beautiful that feels enticing and calm. The second thing is that all adults are sending children there. And if it's just a child that needs 1 minute to calm down, then the person can just walk them there, sit down with them and talk with them in there. This kind of like a process, like a factory of children, and then hoping that it will become a thing that children do by themselves, basically.
Thank you for joining this webinar. If you have any questions, visit teachcloud.com to learn more about our early years and preschool management software, or email hello@teachcloud.com. All of our previously recorded webinars are under preschool webinars on the TeachCloud website.